Hi, I'm Linda Korn. I'm an executive producer at Penguin Random House Audio, and I am thrilled to be here on Meet the Voice, talking today with Dominic Hoffman. He's an actor, writer, director, producer, theatrical performer, film, TV. He does it all. So, Dominic,
Hello.
welcome.
Thank you.
So, Dominic, you and I just finished recording recently on the audiobook Black Futures by the editors Kimberly Drew and Jenna Wortham.
That was a very interesting book because it was so diverse in just, literally hundreds of authors, people there were artists and musicians and critics and philosophers. And it was pretty much Black Futures, I guess, it had to do basically with what is the future of Black art and how society has defined it, influenced it.
What is your secret superpower to to
fear?
Capturing these voices? Yeah.
No, you know what? It's like, reading a book by yourself is one thing, and your imagination just goes and takes over, and you're in charge of the interpretation. But when you do it aloud, it sort of changes you, and you hear rhythms that everybody has their own rhythm. DEACON King Kong, James McBride, all his characters have these rhythms, and you just ride them. It's like Shakespeare, you figure out, okay, this is what it is. And then you sort of try not to get in your own way.
So you really tapped in, you mentioned this word rhythm a lot, tapped into the rhythm of the writing. And as a writer yourself, is that generally your way in listening to the writing?
Yeah, as you're writing different characters, the one hole you can fall into is, okay, I'm one person and I'm writing 8 characters. So how do I make sure that those are individual, singular characters? And one way you do that is you give them different rhythms.
What was your entry point into the arts? You do so many things. What was your beginning? Was it an actor, a writer? And how did you know that was your direction?
I was always a writer. My dad got me a collection of Shakespeare when I was about 13. And after I thought I was going to be a professional football, baseball, basketball player, and not all musician, whatever, I always wrote. And when I was in college, I went to UC Santa Cruz. I was in college and I was doing all these little short plays, and I was having these people read them. And then I'm giving them directions, and they didn't understand. They said, show us what you want, what you're talking about. And so I did it. And then they said, maybe you should do some of this acting. So I applied to acting school, got into ACT, and the rest is a mystery. At UC Santa Cruz, I went to college. And many, many years later, I was doing a Shakespeare festival there as an actor. And I met Rob Dean, because we were both in the same show. We were doing 2 shows. And he said, well, Dominic, you'd be really good at this. Books on tape, maybe I could introduce you. And he introduced me. And my first book was this book by Sharon Flake called Bang, about a dysfunctional Black family. And Dan brought me in, auditioned me, and that was about 16 years ago. And I've been reading for you guys ever since.
Maybe you could share some ways that you've grown. What's influenced your approach? Has it changed?
Yeah. Reading books is like everything else. It's practice, 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 practice. And you get better the more you do. And that's with acting and writing and everything else. And it's certainly with books on tape because, it's a very rigorous art form. I always approach the book just thinking, just don't mess it up. It's funny because you're always better as the book goes on, because you understand the rhythms more. You're more familiar with the author. You have an understanding of what they're trying to do. And Sometimes you wish you can go back to the beginning of the book and start again.
And sometimes we do, right?
Sometimes we do.
Anything unusual you do to prepare?
Make sure you get your rest, because the first thing that goes when you're tired is your voice. You know, I've done, you know, when you're doing regional theater, you're doing 8 shows a week. So you're doing Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and Sunday. It's just like, so you make sure you rest. I always have my tea, and that's it. And I try to wear comfortable clothes.
We've been talking about rhythm, and you talked about the physical kind of stamina it takes to get through some of these really long projects. And I happen to know, which some listeners may not know about you, how much you love dance. And I always wonder, how do you sit still and focus, or is it a physical experience for you to narrate?
That's an interesting question, because I notice myself sometimes get animated in a booth, just, you know, all of a sudden it's no longer just me sitting, trying to internalize everything and have it translated or manifested vocally, that I actually, you know, I'm moving, I'm feeling the character. I mean, you and I have it's a very beautiful experience we've had, where we've been involved in a book that was so emotionally touching that we both ended up in tears. And that's happened several times. I've been the recipient of books to narrate that are difficult emotionally. And sometimes you just have to stop and cry, wipe your tears away, and carry on. Those times, I think they force you to become physical. You know, you don't have a choice.
That was in Homegoing. I remember it well.
Your humanity gets revealed along with the characters, which lets you know the importance of book narration and how it affects you, and how it can affect someone else, you know, because if you're, I always think as an actor, if you're moved by it, stand a good chance that the audience is also moved, you know, because it's real. It's not disingenuous.
Specific character or book that helped you or caused you to explore different new parts of yourself?
Besides Homegoing, there's a book by Walter Mosley called The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray.
First book you narrated?
Bang by Sharon Flake.
Last book you narrated?
Black Futures.
What's your essential item for recording?
I always have my tea, my little tea, yes.
Do you have an in the booth uniform?
Loose pants. and a pillow for my stomach, so you don't hear the growls. Because if you want to have your stomach growl, just walk into a booth.
Book or audiobook you would recommend?
Harry Potter. All day long.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always. I just love seeing you and talking with you, and working with you I've learned so much working with you. I really appreciate it.
I'm so honored to be here, and I thank you so much.